And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
Hello, welcome back to Against the Grain. Thanks for joining me. Tonight I'm going to be diving back into the telepathy tapes with my guest Ditte Young, who is a renowned Danish animal communicator, clairvoyant, family therapist and equine coach. With a unique ability to engage in detailed telepathic communication with animals, she has become a sought-after figure in the field. Ditte's authored 4 books on telepathy and animal behavior and co-authored the US bestseller Activate Your Life, Volumes 3 and 4. Her expertise has been featured on various media platforms, including the podcast The Telepathy Tapes, where she explores the profound connections between humans and animals through telepathy. Now, as you know, this subject involves consciousness. It involves possibly where we are in our stage of evolution and what could potentially be a paradigm shift. So I'm very excited to invite Ditte onto the show and go through all of what her experiences have been over the last 40 years that she's been working in this field. So let's dive straight in and welcome my guest, Ditte Young. Hi, Ditte. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's an absolute pleasure. As you know, I've been interviewing quite a few people with regards to their work with the telepathy tapes, and then your name came up and I saw your TED talk and saw the work that you've been doing. I thought I've got to reach out to you to get you on and hear all what's going on in your life. So I've prepared some questions for you. So I just thought I'd get the ball rolling with some questions about how you got started in all of this. So let me just start with question 1. Your journey into telepathy began with personal experiences. Can you share how these early encounters shaped your approach to animal communication?
I think that as a child, when I grew up, it was just as normal for me as it is any kid who looks at a dog or a cat or a horse or a goat or an animal in general and think they literally speak to the child. And that was my experience. I had birds and dogs at my house where I grew up, and it was super easy for me to train them and make them, quote, obedient very, very fast. And I never questioned why is that. But when I looked at my friends, I saw, well, I'm the only one doing this. This is weird. And my abilities just increased and increased and increased. And my journey began with me wanting to shut it off, basically. And I went to a school, and as you know, in Europe, we have a very high standard when it comes to morality and ethics with clients with mediumship, clairvoyance, et cetera, but we have very high standards, and therefore we have schools. And my teacher was the one telling me that I once would become a renowned animal communicator and become world famous. And I thought, world animal what? Because back then we didn't talk about animal communication at all. And I was sitting there, just shut it off, please. And then you were talking about animals. And I practiced as a clairvoyant. And I became faster and stronger and better. And I saw that telepathy was the easiest thing to do. And then I entered telepathy, and that's almost 30 years ago now.
30 years ago.
Yeah.
So how old were you when the animal communication, really young?
I'm sorry?
How old were you when the animal communication started? Were you really young?
4. Yeah. I'm 46 now.
You're 46 now. Yeah. And you said that you went to see, was it a doctor, and said, I want to shut this off? Who did you go to see to get this shut off?
No, it was a teacher on a clairvoyant school.
So this was some years later?
Yeah, I was. I didn't go to the school as a 4-year-old. I went to the school as a 19-year-old.
Okay.
Asking her to shut it off.
So from 4 to 19, for 15 years, you've been having these clairvoyant experiences or telepathic experiences with animals. How would you describe them, the communication with the animals?
As a voice inside of my own head, but it sounds like the tone of my own voice, which was quite confusing for me to begin with, because I thought, this is my imagination, or am I going schizophrenic here, or what is this? And in the later years, I understood this is how telepathy works. And that's why it's so easy. It's super easy when you just know the basic rules of how telepathy actually works.
Okay. What are the basic rules?
That you will see it. Some people will visualize things and get a picture or an image transmitted and have absolutely no idea, why am I observing this image in front of my inner eyes. Other people will get thoughts like I just told you about, and it will sound like the tone of your own voice in your own head. And some people will become even more empathetic and feel like an over exaggerated emotion. And that's the basic groundbreaking methods when it comes to telepathy.
So would you say that lots of people are experiencing this, but they just don't know that they are?
Yeah, they experience it every day when they think about something and later it occurs. Did they manifest it or didn't they? When they think of a friend and they are suddenly calling them. When spouses or one of the partners think about what to eat for dinner and the other partner will say, oh my God, I just thought of. And we always think it's a coincidence. But when you experience this and you open your eyes to it, you'll see it every single day.
So Rupert Sheldrake's work with, dogs knowing that their owners are coming home, above statistical chance, the numbers. But the other one with people having the sense of being stared at from behind seems to work more with family members or loved ones. And so there seems to be a correlation between the bond between the people and the increased amount of telepathy or clairvoyance, or telepathy, I suppose. Is that right?
Well, I don't think I hold the entire truth, but in my experience, I've seen the sixth sense, where you sense a presence of a deceased person. Some people call them ghosts, some people just call them spirits, or you sense a photographer or a car pulling up next to you without even looking at the car, but just staring straight ahead out the window. That's the sixth sense. And I think that the seventh sense is where telepathy lies. And I believe that it's accessible for everyone, not only families and some people you are very connected with, but of course you have to train it.
Right. Right. And we live in a society which not only doesn't offer the training, but tells us that these things don't exist, and work very hard to tell us that these things don't exist. And we have a whole mental health system which definitely has many people that are having these experiences diagnosed with various mental illnesses.
Yeah, I think, and it's a slippery slope, and it's a very fine line between, are you schizophrenic or suffering from other vulnerable mental diseases, or do you actually hear things? And the difference is, how well connected and grounded are you, and do you have strength enough to handle those abilities once you experience clairvoyance, mediumship, or telepathy, because it is overwhelming.
Right, you use the word strength there. When you say strength to do it, what sort of qualities, internal qualities, do you feel you need to be able to handle it?
I need to have discipline. Of course, if you're just interested in telepathy and clairvoyance as a hobby, you don't need the strength. But if you work on an everyday basis, as I do, and I've done that for 30 years, you need discipline, that strength. You need the ability to know yourself in and out, which means why do I feel what I feel, to be able to translate it? Where is my emotions located when I get health issues transmitted from a client? and strength to handle skepticism and non-believers as well, and strength and resources to help other people all the time that are desperate, because often when they seek alternative help such as clairvoyance, mediumship, or telepathy, they have no more shots left. You are often the last piece in the puzzle here, and the clients have might been fighting a battle for years before they go the alternative or seek the
Yeah.
alternative way, and they are trying to get you to help them now, which I can't, and that requires strength as well, because of course as a human being I'm interested in helping them as soon as possible, but I all of my clients have severe problems.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
In your work with elite equestrians, how does telepathic communication influence the training and performance of the horses?
I don't think it has a different impact on the elite when you compare it to a normal hobby rider on a trail ride, because the informations are basically the same, but the effect on telepathy or behavioral issues are more important or groundbreaking for elite riders than other people. Often when I help dog owners, as an example, they accept, some of them in some extent, well, my dog can't stay home alone, I'll gonna bring it to work, or my dog is afraid in the meeting with other dogs, then I'll just go another way. Or some horse owners have horses that refuses to be loaded onto a trailer, and they accept it, then we don't load it. But when we have to do with the elite, they have to load the horse on the trailer. It has to accept the TV screens or people applauding it when it's riding into the arena. And that's why it's more crucial for the rider to have a very fast result and a very efficient result. And in my opinion, I love working with elite riders because they are super dependent on every single detail. When you are sitting on a horse, you have to work simultaneously with a horse, and the observer will see synchronicity, a dancing equestrian doing the exact same movement, and it has to look light and easy, and it's not for the rider. And there are so many things to focus on when you work on that level. And I love how do they breathe, exhale? How do they carry too much weight to the right, to the left? Did they visualize the right thing? And the horse will reflect it in the second they don't do what they have to do, because then the equipage are not in a flow, and you can't cover it up when you work as a sport horse or
So you're working with the two of them like dance partners. You're
yeah,
not just working with the horse; you're working with the rider as well in the same way to see how they're flowing together. Right? Okay, I get it.
yeah, because the horse does what the rider does.
So can you give me? I don't know how briefly you can do this, but how can you give me a brief example of like a typical? There probably isn't typical cases, but you know, someone who's come to you say recently, or a case that sticks out in your mind where you've how you went about it, approached it, what the challenge was first of all, why they consulted you, and what you did, and how the process went to resolve it or work through it. Can you just give me an example of one?
Oh, I have so many. Most from the elite.
Sure.
Most equestrians contact me from the elite because they think their horse refuses to perform. It could be behavioral, quote, behavioral issues, such as it refuses to jump the bigger jumps, or it's difficult to create a full canter to the left, for example, during a program, and they want to understand why are my horse not performing, and will you please fix it? And when they figure out that in 10% of the times it has something to do with health issues, but in 90% of the time it has something to do with the rider, it changes everything for them. But it also connects them even better because it's another way for the rider to take full responsibility of their actions. And I
Okay.
love working with horses because they are so sensitive. But basically, they are just showing what everybody else is actually doing. Just like if you and I were spending enough time together, I think we would affect one another as well.
Sure. Yeah, I know that happens. Yeah. So would you go so far as to say that, I mean, I know that when people are in sync together, that that dance partners, I use dance again as another thing because it's like that synchronized swimming, isn't it? You on a deep intuitive level, you feel when somebody's going to move and you move with them, and then you move as one, and that's what makes a dance stand out. It seems to me that the example of that works as an analogy for the horse and the rider. But am I right in thinking then that what the rider is imagining, where their imaginal visualization self is, the horse being so sensitive is totally in tune with that, and if that's off in any way, that's what causes the issue.
Yes, and their weight as well, because a horse reacts on a fly. If you have a little small fly sitting on a horse, it will start to not wig the tail, but
Yeah.
be annoyed and stomp the feet in the ground because of a fly. And when you have a human being sitting there, we could imagine what kind of impact does that have on the horse,
Right.
because it's super sensitive. And that's just, yeah, it's just interesting. It's super interesting.
It sounds like it. Is there a difference between how you'd work with, I mean, obviously, dogs don't have a rider and other animals don't have somebody on their back, but essentially then if you went to a dog or a cat, or you're working with some other animals, how does that differ?
Well, the owner, it takes them a while before it occurred to the owners, we have a problem here, because it's easier to cover up a behavioral issues when you're not sitting on an animal. But when we have outbursts or aggressive behavior, it's very easy and it needs to be fixed. And when the animal owners or the dog parent discover that the dogs are reacting on their emotions and their thoughts, it's a more interesting session for all of us, actually. But it requires people to be ready for that kind of information, because 20 years ago, if I take you back to that, I just had to prove it was the horse, or the dog, and I needed to fix them now to prove it. And it has taken me some years and a lot and thousands of clients for me to become drained enough of trying to fix everybody else besides the actual cause to the problem. And that was the owner.
Wow. Okay. So I get what you're telling me there is that the credibility, the need for gaining credibility because of the skepticism, because of what you're up against with, such an unorthodox business model, to put it in that way. It changed the way you worked. It affected the way you worked because of their demands as a customer, saying, this is what we want. This is how we want it. And you find that in all walks of life, don't you? Like people who are not experts at fixing cars, for example. I work in the motor industry, as you know, and people will tell me, "Oh, well, why hasn't this been done?" And they know nothing about the process. They know nothing, but they'll tell you, "This is what we want, and this is when we want it done by." You're under the same pressures for 20 years before you started to go, "Okay, hold on,
Yeah, exactly.
This is how it is." And 9 times out of 10, then. Is it 9 times out of 10 that it's the people, not the animal?
It's 10 out of 10.
It's 10 out of 10.
When it's behavioral issues, of course, I have sessions where the questions and the solution is found in health issues and the veterinarian.
Wow. Okay, so let's move on to people then. With people, you've got so we connected because of the telepathy tapes, which blew my mind. Not very many things blow my mind these days. I've been around the block, I've had some experiences, and when I listened to the telepathy tapes the first time, I just cried a lot, and it was because I felt this sense of them being seen, finally being acknowledged that there's somebody in there and that they've been in there all this time. And I worked as a volunteer when I was 17 in a mental health hospital. I was a volunteer for the occupational therapy department for 6 months. I was 17 going into 18 years old, picking them up from the wards, taking them to the swimming pool, taking them to cookery classes, soft play, rubbing their arms, because some of them were physically disabled. So we'd rub to make their arms stretch and stuff like that. Did all that kind of stuff. So I'd worked with them. I got close with some of them. I felt the love off of some of them, from that early age. So it left a big impression on me. And so the telepathy tapes has exploded.
Oh,
You've got an autistic son.
I have, yes.
And so it seems that you were ready made with your career and with your abilities to be able to connect with him. Is that how it worked? Tell me how it worked.
It's funny that you say this, because the clairvoyant that told me that I once would become a renowned animal communicator told me in the same session that I was once becoming a mom to a special gifted son, and I would facilitate shows and speeches about him. And I had no idea it would be a TED or a podcast show as the telepathy tapes, or that I would work with the Olympic riders from the entire world. And after I worked as an animal communicator for many years and started to educate myself as a therapist, it took 4 years on my school. And I worked at the news department in my country as well as a production manager. And I did something that has absolutely nothing to do with animals. I never understood my path. I never understood, why am I the one communicating with animals? And I saw that because I'm not super sensitive and want to rescue every single animal I meet on my way, that's why I am the professional animal communicator. I am an animal lover, but I'm not, quote, hysterical when it comes to projecting sensitivity or protecting animals at all. I have to meet the owners where they are at their level of understanding how to have animals and not be judgmental. And I couldn't do that if I was the fighting Ditte for animals' rights.
Sure.
And I never understood, and how can I help my son as well, and autistic children? I never seemed to build that bridge. My team here in Copenhagen, Denmark, that helped me with PR and when I participate on TV shows, said, we have absolutely no idea how to build that bridge between your animal work and everything you're doing with the autistic children. And then came the telepathy tapes. And I have said to Kai Dickens, you have no idea how important that podcast show is. Absolutely no idea.
I think she does. I think she does now.
I truly hope what an impact this has made for us as mankind, and for a family member as me trying to clear the road for my son.
I mean, on that subject, I've talked a lot about this with various guests on my show, and for several years about what all this is about. And to me, this is another step to show us that we're evolving. That we've had these abilities forever. The mystical experiences and the paranormal's been with us forever. We just happen to be in this kind of horizontal materialist realm at the moment, which wants to keep us horizontal. And there's lots of gatekeepers that step off when anybody tries to step outside and go vertical with it and say there's something else going on. The invisible side of us, the mind, that doesn't work in the same way that material reality does. We get stopped, and we get the whole propaganda from our peers. They've all been kind of brainwashed into coming out with the same phrase, you get it, like it's like when you mentioned a coincidence or a synchronicity, people will just say, it's just those words. They're the trick. They're the triggers, aren't they? Oh, it's just a coincidence, or it's just this, or it's just that. And they want to bring, take all of the context out of it and bring it back to something that can just be put in a box. And all of this, I'm sure. I'm just saying it
Oh
out
yeah,
loud.
I do. I've been living. My address is protected because I have been harassed for so many years, and it's been quite interesting to me to observe the anxiety people get tuned into, even though they probably don't know it's fear.
Yeah.
But it's that provoking to them that there might be something they can't see with the eye. That's very interesting.
Well, I mean, we've got a lot of history with it. The Catholic Church and the witches and all what happened. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people that were very badly treated and killed and murdered for having special abilities because they associated it with the devil. So, and then we still live with remnants of that rather than a bigger explanation of, look, maybe the way it's been framed for us. And I think that the telepathy tapes, and this is what I wanted to say really on that, was that the telepathy tapes and a number of other things seem to be there seems to be, in my mind, a perfect storm coming, where there are things coming from different angles, which are basically making us realize material reality isn't all there is. We are more than what we think we are, and we've got the path out of that is to get rid of our own hang-ups and to get to know ourselves, like you said, more, so that we can stop the lies, stop the dishonesty, have some morals and ethics towards each other, and things are going to start opening up. That's how I see it. The telepathy tapes seem to give me that encouragement and that, massive encouragement that that's coming now. Do you know what I mean? But then you have to be, because I've been at this 28 years, you have to be feet on the ground still and say, okay, I don't want to get too excited here. I've got to keep my expectations real and just carry on having the conversations and carry on
Yeah,
having.
and as I've said on other podcast shows I've been on, it's important that we speak openly about telepathy and that we keep sending energy into this debate because the paradigm shift can't depend on one podcast show or one woman, Kai
No.
Dickens, in the world. It needs to build bridges towards other countries. You and I are sitting in different
Yeah.
countries right now, debating this, putting energy into this, and hopefully inspire your listeners to speak about it. And that's how we create the shift.
Yeah. I mean, a mentor of mine, Professor Michael Glickman in the crop circle world, said years ago, he used to host these crop circle tea times where people used to come to visit from all over the world, come to visit the crop circles, and they'd go around to his house and have tea and talk to him. And he'd had 30 years experience, in the crop circles, written several books. And he would say, there would always be several skeptics amongst, the husbands that had been dragged along with the wives to visit the crop circles, and they'd be sitting in the corner with their arms folded, and when they felt safe, when they felt they were safe, they then came out and said, actually, I saw a UFO once, or actually, I had a telepathic experience once, or actually, I had this coincidence. And they were like dissidents, that were scared of the repercussions. And that's the pressure that's been put on everybody to not speak about this stuff when pretty much everybody's had some experience or another.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it just goes like that. So with the telepathy tapes and with your work with the autistic children, it goes beyond conventional therapy, often involving telepathy and intuitive communication. Can you share a moment or breakthrough that fundamentally shifted your understanding and how these children perceive and relate to the world?
I think the breakthrough was my own son, to be honest. Giving birth to a son, Philip is his name, and he was born totally blind. And every single doctor in my country told me he is never going to have a vision. You have to accept it. And I refused accepting this because I kind of sensed they don't know. They don't know about the potential of nerves. Working around nerves takes quite a while. And I received messages from Philip, keep doing it, keep going, mom. And I just used my telepathical sense, I guess, and I trained him and trained him. And after 4 months, only 4 months of training, he got a vision or partial vision. And then I got motivated to practice more. And I was already an animal communicator and a telepath, but of course, as the mother to later, I figured out an autistic child, I saw, oh my God, how brilliant is this? I have to pass this on, that it's not only the non-speaking animals we can communicate with. And we remember this is 17 years ago.
Right.
I got Philip. We can practice this with children as well. Of course we can, because when we have access to telepathy, we have access to everything.
Wow.
Clairvoyance, mediumship, everything. And I knew that the society around me wasn't ready for me to share that knowledge. And today I understand why it was important for me to be that renowned as I am as an animal communicator,
Yeah.
to create room for my next path, which is fighting the exact same battle, but for our children.
Wow. 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 So how long before you started to work with other parents and other children after you started to realize this with your son?
I have worked with them ever since I witnessed that with Philip in my therapeutical sessions as a therapist and family therapist. But of course, over the last many years, neurodivergence, the number of diagnosed children of ours has increased enormously, which means the interest of my work as a telepath has increased as well.
Okay. Neurodivergent. I'm glad you brought that up because I want to talk about neurodivergence because it's on the increase. Some people blame vaccines. I watched a psychiatrist yesterday do a podcast with Stephen Bartlett, who says that a lot of carbohydrates and a lot of processed food and a lot of seed oils are contributing towards increase in ADHD. And then listening to some of the children that have communicated through the telepathy tapes, they say that some of them chose to be autistic. They chose to have this path. That's what some of the children have said. When they got a choice at 2 years of age in their spirit, they chose to go down the path of being autistic because they thought that they were part of the bigger picture, or they think that they're part of the bigger picture, should I say, in waking the world up to these abilities. So it's a bit difficult to separate out, isn't it? Are we genetically predisposed to it? There's another thing I want to add to this as well. Is it to do with diet? Because people have said, according to this psychiatrist, if they get onto a ketogenic diet and they take out the carbohydrates, the processed food, and the seed oils, that a lot of the symptoms that they experience with ADHD go away. Even some of their brilliant abilities, which can, because they think differently and you make connections differently, and you know, the neurodivergence can be a gift and a curse, you know, quite often. Is it all of those, do you think? Have you got something else to add to that? I mean, and the last thing I want to add to this is there have been now a lot of studies in the UFO arena, which I think all of this is connected. I'm not big on the technology side of UFOs, that there's machines flying around in the sky. I'm more about the consciousness side of that aspect of the phenomenon. But Dr. Gary Nolan, one of the researchers who's been consulted by the government to look into this, has said that with the neurodivergence, he's found that not only are most of these people that have these experiences, abduction experiences and so on, I've got the brain structure of neurodivergence. I've got I'm not sure what all of the qualities are, but they unconsciously also seek out mates that have the same neurodivergence and have children that have the same neurodivergence. What do you think's going on, Ditte?
I think all of it, but I think on a bigger scale or a higher perspective, I think that if you believe in the law of something greater than us, let's say the law of attraction or the universe, truly wants us to develop. And we have, as the mankind, developed so many things. We have ChatGPT now. What do we need people for? We don't need them anymore, basically, right? We are trying to diminish ourselves here. But how do we develop? And we have, over the last 10 and 15 years, an increased interest in self-development and insight in ourselves, but who can truly, that group of people that can truly develop us as human beings are children, our children. We will do anything on this planet to help them to get better lives. I think it's a combination of probably vaccines. We are manipulating with way too many things on this planet.
No
Our
question
food,
about that.
everything we're manipulating with. Other scientists have seen fungus in houses. If children grew up in houses with fungus, they developed autism as well. And
Right.
maybe we don't only have one reason for autism to happen. Maybe they are just super sensitive, and maybe all these children are here because they are so much in tune with their nervous system and all of their seven senses. And because the society is totally outdated in the entire world, we have to call them something. And we call it autism or ADHD or ADD or some other letter diagnosis, because we need to put them into boxes. And I hope that the development of the increased amount of diagnoses here in every single country in the world will change the society. Not what to do with our children, but forces society to change instead.
In what way? Change in what way?
As a very specific example, just before I was on this podcast, and I have my mind set on this as well, because Philip will turn 18 in a year from now, but I helped a family from Michigan with a neurodivergent, non-speaking girl. She's 16, and the mom asked the girl, through me as a telepath, is she willing to get a job? And the daughter said, what is a job? And I started to laugh because it was just on point. What is a job? And the girl said, but can I make a living out of something that I love, that I find interesting?
Wow.
And that's just geniosity on the most logical form I've ever heard it. So how can we change society? Well, by not going to a workplace we hate from 8 to 5 and get paid, or die on our couches at 9 p.m. at night, and then we have Groundhog Day. Everything starts all over the next day, because these children just want us to be present, happy in the now. And what could a future be like if we had to foster happy children, regardless if they're neurotypical or neurodivergent? It starts by the adults are happy. Happy grown-ups creates happy children.
True that. Oh, well, there's so many things came up there. I mean, the societal thing, that's one of the big things that happened to me in the sort of my change or flip. Like I like to use Jeffrey Kripal's term, the flip. Really, when you're running along in one paradigm, and all of a sudden you realise, oh dear, the world isn't what I think of Coyote chasing Roadrunner, you know, and you run off the cliff, and then you look down and realise there's no ground under you anymore, and then you're reaching for answers, aren't you? What I now need a new story, a new paradigm that's going to explain what's happening to me. And that's when I've seen so many people latch on to various spiritual disciplines or various, you know, they need answers. That desperation for, I need to lock this down is one of the big things, isn't it? It's very difficult to keep it open. But one of the big things that came up for me was, we're not supposed to be living like this. We're not supposed to be wage slaves. We're not supposed to be doing exactly what you just described, dying on the couch every night and Groundhog Day in it every day. Some of the jobs I see, I mean, in some ways, I thank God that ChatGPT is here, so that we don't have to have people sitting in front of supermarket beepers anymore, just putting tins of beans in front, beep, beep. that's not what human potential is about. Everybody has so much more potential in them. And I
Yeah.
think that's the irony with these autistic children, is that they're showing us that even with their challenges, physical challenges, the potential, the things that we have that we don't even know that we have, is being shown to us through them. And that's why I think there's an evolutionary aspect to this for all of us to wake up as well.
Exactly. It's so interesting that when we consider what is quote normal,
Yeah.
it's the biggest group. And in 10
Yeah.
years from now, in Copenhagen, Denmark, where I am, and I think it goes out for many other countries in the world, the majority of neurodivergent children will become bigger than the
Yeah.
neurotypical, which means neurodivergence will become normal.
Yeah. So I mean, it's very X-Men, isn't it? The mutants. It really is. And so many of these children have different abilities.
They are super gifted because they listen, because they are just in the now. I don't know if it's lack of development in the frontal lobe in the brain, or it's just they are more sensitive, but we need those children on this planet. We need to be in tune with our emotions and sensitivity. If we didn't have these children, we would run ourselves half to death, and we
Well,
are already
I
good.
think we're nearly there. Yeah, I think we're nearly there. But that's it, isn't it? I mean, when I talked to Dr. Diana Powell about this, Diane Powell, we were talking about right brain, left brain, and they are living more in their right brain, which is this side of us, which is the bigger side of ourselves, the bit which is creative, the bit which is intuitive and has all these superhuman aspects to it. The left brain side, which is logical and rational and wants answers to everything, and is the reason that we're all living in this head-based society, is because that's where we've been pushed, isn't it? Particularly with the scientific paradigm that we've lived in, which has become a dogma and a priesthood in itself, so-called
It's
science.
It's super interesting that during the lockdown here in my country, during COVID, there was this group of people that, like me, said, I can't tell the difference. Do we have a lockdown? I'm by myself already. I go my walks in nature. I exhale, I breathe, I meditate. I see the same amount of people. I'm just at ease, at peace, no stress. The other half of this group were totally stressed. Oh my God, we can only be 4 people in a room. I can't go to work, blah, blah, blah. And it was super interesting for me to observe these two very different groups. And I just figured, okay, if the other group that just wants to go back to work and they hate the lockdown and the quietness and the silence, they are in for a treat in a couple of years, because something's going to happen like COVID that's going to hit them, I'm sorry, in the face, so
Mm.
they understand
Mm.
why we want to be more present. Now we have the neurodivergent children, like at a massive amount of these children in every single country in the world. What are the odds?
Yeah,
Maybe
what are the
they're
odds?
here for us to listen.
I really think they are, to be honest with you, Dieter. I really think that there's, I don't like to think of a grand plan. I like to think that each of us individually are the grand plan ourselves, really.
That's
If we could
true.
just, we have to be what we are rather than do something. And so collectively, I read this phrase the other, God is idealism for the masses. I read this the other day. And so if we change our ideology about how we live in this paradigm, if we all collectively do that, because, more neurodivergence come up and then the scale tips, then this bigger part of us runs through all of us. God is idealism for the
Right.
masses, right?
Ooh.
I love that phrase now, because it
Me
makes
too.
sense. And that shows the potential and the power that human beings really have. And if we suppress something, if we try to make a part of what reality is the whole, it won't work. And that's what we've tried to do. And so when we try to do that, it's like we step on the hose and then the pressure builds. And I feel that all of this stuff that's coming out now with crop circles, with UFO phenomena, with abductions, with paranormal experiences, with all things which are mystical, even quantum physics. This is one of the things I find strange, is that quantum physics was discovered 100 years ago, which basically explains all of this phenomena, right? It explains it. But the humanities are still back in the old days. We're not allowed to catch up and say that, these experiences that we have, subjective experiences, are real. But the objective science, which says quantum physics is this, beneath matter is really this, it's energy, and the past and the present and the future are all one thing.
But it's super odd, right? That when it comes to scientists, you said it very nicely. They are filling in the holes or filling in the blanks, right? And if you could imagine not having the talent of speaking up, if you had duct tape on your mouth, we as humankind are super intelligent. We find another way to communicate.
Right.
And if I didn't have the verbal language, trust me, I would find another way.
Yeah.
It's called telepathy, or blinking with an eye if I could, or doing something with an arm, or something with my motor skill if I could. But if I couldn't, and I was in handcuffs or something, I only had one solution left, and that would be telepathy.
You just reminded me of a team building exercise I went on once years ago. We had a group of us. There was this like net, and you had to lift people up and put them through the holes in the net, right? As a team. I was the leader. Halfway through, they gagged me, so I couldn't speak anymore. So then I sat there for a while. I thought, I can't do anything. And I was just sitting there, and they were all getting on with it. And then I was like up, and I was going, pointing and stuff. And so I found another way to communicate. You just reminded me.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks.
And that's it, isn't it? So on a bigger scale, that's what reality is doing.
Exactly. We are all doing it. We're finding another way. Like
Through
we are
us.
emptying this planet. What are we trying to do? Empty another, move to another planet and empty that. We're trying to find solutions all the time. Why shouldn't it be possible for non-speakers to do the same thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay. Speaking to a clairvoyant, speaking to a medium, where you've just said, these people that we talked about, these people that couldn't cope with the lockdown and the pandemic. One half were present, and living in the moment that they did. The other half that I know, or more than half, I would say, were not staying in the moment. They were getting out of their heads on drugs, on alcohol, because they couldn't cope with being at home, watching TV, losing themselves in television, binge watching shows. They ate. People didn't get. It showed that when work or this slave mentality life is taken away from them, they didn't have anything else in their lives. They had no passion. They had no meaning. They had no purpose to follow. And so it just got filled with negative things for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And showed that hole. So where do you see, if this comes up again, which I think it might in some respects, where do you see this going? You're clairvoyant, so you might have some insight into this.
Yeah, I saw many years ago, I think it was 20 years ago, I saw that our countries were divided somewhat different than they are today. That could be, we don't have Denmark and Germany where Denmark borders to, or Denmark and Sweden, but we have one union or one country. And I saw that people were dependent on passing on crops to one another from one island to another island. And those people that were working in the fields or working to create food for the other islands or unions were neurodivergent. And I thought, what? Are you sure? Do we have, back then it was okay to say disabled children.
Okay.
It's not okay anymore. But I thought, that's pretty offensive, isn't it? But I kind of think that we're getting there, that why couldn't they help in the fields? We have people that are coming down with stress here in Europe as never before. And what do they do when they get back to work? work at the field or cotton farm or flower farm or whatever, and be in nature. And
Nature.
exactly. And I think there's a potential in the future for several things, that we are forced to work in nature and not in the fabrics or in front of a computer screen anymore, because maybe AI took over. And definitely to create communities where we are 1000% dependent on helping one another. And since we can't come up with that great idea to help each other, nature is going to do something that will force us to help one another. And I was hoping for mankind to understand this before any catastrophe has to hit us, because I thought, well, COVID, that was pretty serious. That was a global problem. And we had clean water and fresh air. And, we almost not balanced the earth, but we did a lot in a very short amount of time. And yet we kept repeating our greediness when the world entered. And I don't want to talk about a catastrophe and what could that be like, because that's super negative and could create anxiety out there to listeners.
Sure.
But of course, something has to happen for an awakening.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you take a poll of most people right now, most people think that the future is dystopian. They don't think that we're going in a good direction. It's not difficult to figure out why.
Yeah.
One of the other sides of the pandemic is that for years I remember having discussions with people about the fact that large population of the government, people that represent the governments, the ones that are actually making the decisions, have been lobbied or coerced by corporations in some way or another, where they have become corrupt. And there were lots of people who just would not accept that, but there are more people that will accept it now post-pandemic. And so what's happened as a result of the pandemic is that trust in our establishments, trust in the people that run our lives or tell us how we should run our lives, is going down, isn't it?
It is. We can just look at the big country across our ocean, where the majority of people didn't believe in the government and they chose a different president.
Yeah. I mean, I lived in Mexico at the time, and the hatred for Trump was visceral. But the embracing of Biden and thinking that would change the world and change the planet and do good things for everybody. I think, I wonder now, if I spoke to some of my Mexican colleagues, if they'd say, yeah, well, it didn't turn out how we thought it would when Biden took over, I mean, they're probably reeling again, obviously, now that Trump's back in. But so, telepathy tapes are being filmed right now. Kai's out there. I'm watching, different Manisha published something the other day where Akil and Houston's out there with, Kurt, oh God, I've forgotten, Katie. And it looks like they're having great fun making the film. Have you done any filming for the next show yet? Or have you done your bit already?
Well, I can't tell, but
I know you can't tell me about the details, but have you done it? Have you done your bit?
No, I don't think I'm totally finished with the telepathy tapes.
Okay, great. So we're going to see that. I'm really, 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 really looking forward to that documentary coming out, obviously, and I think it's going to make such a massive difference to how people perceive it all. What's next for you, Ditte? What's coming up for you now?
Oh, besides, I'm getting married in a couple of weeks. Thank you. In my private life, many big things are going to happen for the next months. And I'm trying my best to not be too stressed about this big incoming client potential here I have. But I have a lot of courses, animal telepathy mastery online courses. I just finished my telepathy mastery for parents course last night, And my goal is to pass on my methods to everyone, animal owners or parents, as possible, because telepathy takes about 5 minutes to practice. It's believing in your own intuition and in your own abilities that takes a while. And I believe that the path to creating better society is to create more empathetic people. And that could be through guided meditations, that could be through, I'm sorry, becoming sick or something and have the awakening through disease, or it could be listening to other people that have already the experience they might find necessary in their lives. So that's going to be my goal.
I'm just coming to the end of this. This guy's a hero of mine, Jeffrey Kripow. I mentioned him, I think, before we came on camera. Just coming to the end of this is his latest book, How to Think Impossibly. And I mean, I've read quite a few of his books, and he talks about the fact that trauma, crisis in your life, and it certainly was the case for me, when it all happened for me, it was massively traumatic time going on. You know, my marriage was breaking down, and my work was stressing me out so much I didn't realize how much stress I'd been burying until something happened, and then something happens and you have a big breakdown, which is what happened to me. And then in the ensuing months that followed that breakdown, paranormal stuff started to happen. And it's not just to me, that's what happens to most people. So this global catastrophe, without wanting to go down a negative road, or crisis, is going to be necessary, isn't it, for us to wake up? It's a part of the process, it seems, because it's a part of the process for us to go through these things individually.
Unfortunately, yes. And if you look at the almost religious believers in spirituality or the paranormal world, often they become believers after they had cancer or a near-death experience, or was in a car accident and almost died. Then they believe. And it's unfortunate for people that we have to get literally a door slammed in the face before we start believing on our own intuition, because it's accessible all the time. We wear it all the time. It moves around with us. We have access to it all the time. And I don't understand why people are afraid of it, to be honest. I think they're afraid of what will come. If I am an intuitive, what does that mean? Can I see ghosts? Is my father, my deceased father, alive then? Will my old mother-in-law haunt me down in nightmares, etc., etc.? I think it's the unknown that people might fear, but if they could find answers to everything, and that's what we get taught in schools, analyze the book, analyze the story, tell me about it. We're trained to analyze things, and if we could get answers to everything, I think it would be more digestible for people. But luckily, the scientists are on its way. They are already doing peer groups now and control groups and a lot of scientific experiences that's going to help this process.
Yeah. I mean, more and more of them are coming, and then you know, we know it's said quite often that the peer groups, you know, that particularly in academia, you've got a number of pressures, haven't you, to keep the paradigm as it is, not only commercial ones, but you've got the whole way that the institution's been set up, the whole way that the objective sciences have been set up. I think about on a similar sort of topic, really, with health. For example, heart disease. The war on heart disease began in the US, I think, in 1949. They said, right, we're going to get to the bottom of this, and since 1949, they've kind of narrowed in. I think in 1987 they published this thing about LDL cholesterol. This is the thing that's doing it, and since then it's been a very myopic one number. If you've got this high cholesterol, this means you're getting heart disease, and this means that, and they would not shift, and there's still many of them who still will not shift from that position. However, there is a huge number of cardiologists and other physicians coming forward now and going, hang on a minute, it's insulin resistance. Okay, so there's things to do with insulin resistance, and why on earth would we think that it would all be down to one number? And then when you look at the training that these cardiologists had, they were told this is what it was. They passed that in an exam because they went to a prestigious university and got their qualifications from their professors. That's why, one of the big reasons why they won't move and shift their position. But when colleagues and their peers are now coming forward, psychiatrists, cardiologists, and saying, hang on a minute, we found this out, you can see that slowly they're starting to go, hang on, what we've been told about all of this is wrong.
Right.
And so it is happening with our health, with our physical bodies, that people are flipping,
Right.
the so-called experts. It's happening with the invisible part of ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where people are
Lovely.
flipping.
It's about time. Some of
Isn't
us
it?
have been waiting for this for many, many decades. I'm like, oh my God. Can we get there soon?
I know. It's quite painful, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wonder that pain that we've suffered over the years with all of this is, I don't know what it's earned us, really. A lot of stress, I feel. I feel isolated in some ways with, some conversations. I can go out and have conversations with regular people, no problem at all. But it feels like there's something missing. It feels like,
I'm sorry, but didn't it heal your wound? Didn't it bring something in your life that you lacked? You might trying to project on other people, but figured out, even though you probably going to vomit now when I say you provided it to yourself.
what do you mean?
I'm sorry, I don't know your situation, but you said a divorce, and I know you were a single parent, and
Yeah.
you traumatized and came down with a breakdown or
Yeah.
stress. But again, with the positive hat on, I hope that you are better at protecting yourself. I hope that you are a better caregiver to yourself.
I would say not completely. No.
Oh, really?
Yeah, even after all this time, it's still a challenge. I mean, I understand myself a lot more, a huge amount more. I understand the world a lot more and why things are the way they are, but I still struggle. I still would say I'm work in progress, definitely.
But that's why we are human beings, because when
Yeah.
we stop struggling and we see the light and we are in a constant flow, we don't have to be here anymore.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So there's still work to be done. But I enjoy the work. I really do enjoy the work now. I mean, and I'm narrowing in more and more all the time on, I'm mentioning to you the strengths, going with my strengths and not trying to swim up against the tide. That's really coming clearly into focus now. And people say to me, my girlfriend says to me, "Oh, you're too intelligent." Bless her. I honestly, when I look at myself, I'm a moron because there's so many things I should have got years ago, and I knew them years ago, and I still weren't bloody sorting them out. So it depends, doesn't it? It's how you really honestly look at yourself compared to how other people see you.
Yeah, and how strong your default setting is as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Dita, this has been a fantastic conversation.
I loved it too, Gary. Thank you so much for
Thank
this.
you. And thanks for all the work that you're doing. I'm really looking forward to seeing everything else that's going to come out with the telepathy tapes and more of your work, of course. We're friends on Facebook now, so I keep up with
Yeah, we can follow each other.
exactly what you do. Yeah, so that's great. Is there anything else? So I'm going to put links to your website and your TED Talk and stuff in the description below. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell the audience about what's going on before we finish?
Oh, I'll just hope that people will trust their intuition and train it if they feel interested in telepathy, because it's doable. Try to turn off your GPS next time you're driving a car and see for yourself. You're going to figure out how you're going to get there, or meditate or visualize things that aren't there. That's all training things that are accessible to you and that will increase your abilities to practice telepathy.
Thank you.